Welcome to South East Today. I'm Rob Smith.
And I'm Polly Evans. Tonight's top stories. The mother of a young man killed along with his friend when their car crashed in Sussex tells us the family is devastated.
It's just such a shock to know that one day you're telling them off and then the next day they're not here anymore.
They cleaned his feeding tube with a pen. 3 nurses face a hearing about how they treated a brain-damaged patient.
Also in tonight's programme, on the campaign trail, the Lib Dem leader, Nick Clegg, claims that the party can win their first Kent seat in Maidstone. Another day of chaos at London Bridge, another set of apologies from Network Rail over signalling failures.
You know poor old Joe?
No, but I know his sister very well.
And can you hear me, Mother? Remembering Mr Eastbourne's Sandy Powell as a blue plaque's unveiled to the entertainment.
Good evening. Emotional tributes have been paid to 2 young men, one of whom would have been celebrating his 21st birthday today, who died after the car they were travelling in crashed into a church wall.
Michael Owen, who's father to a 4-year-old girl, and Carl Careford were both from Tunbridge Wells. They died when their car overturned and crashed into a wall outside a church in Crowborough. Well, tonight, Michael's mother says that the family are completely devastated. Charlie Rose reports.
Friend, partner and father to 4-year-old Lily. Now 21-year-old Michael Owen is dead.
Such a waste of 21 years old with a child, of Lily, nearly 5 this month, and she's not got no dad, and that is the saddest part of it, that Lily will have no dad, and it's just such a shock to know that one day you're telling them off and then the next day they're not here anymore.
This morning, the mother of his daughter arrived at the scene of the crash, but she was too devastated to talk to me on camera. The other man who lost his life was Kyle Careford. Today would have been his 21st birthday. People living opposite the scene described to me the aftermath of this terrible crash.
My stepson was really shocked when he saw the car it was just demolished. There was nothing left of the car. The front was very, very, very badly damaged. And there were some unpleasant scenes which, you know, nothing really sort of sets you up for when you see it with your own eyes.
Kyle Careford and Michael Owen were in a Renault Clio when it crashed into this church wall at 20-1 on Sunday morning. The shattered glass now sits between the flowers.
What we're doing is we have obviously spoken to many individuals who were around at the time. We've been knocking on the doors asking for help, and we'd like any other person that has witnessed this event to please come forward to try and further investigation.
I don't know how I'm going to cope. I don't know how my family are going to cope, my daughter especially. We will get through it as a family, and hopefully Carl's family will do the same, and we'll all get through it in our own way.
Families have lost sons, girlfriends have lost partners, and a little girl is now without a father.
Well, Charlie Rose is in Crowborough for us now. And Charlie, people have been leaving flowers and other items there all day.
Yes, they have, Rob. This one to Carl Careford here reads, "I'll never forget the time we had, always in my heart and mind, my handsome angel." And over here, this tribute to Michael Owen from his daughter and her mother, which reads, "There will never be a day I don't think about you. You really were truly amazing. Love you so much." Now, this afternoon, I spoke to Michael Owen's mum. She had a key message for other young drivers to take extra care on the roads.
OK, Charlie, thank you. A medical tribunal has been hearing how a man who was being treated at a Kent brain injury unit was left to lay in urine-soaked sheets, was spoken to inappropriately and had an emergency call bell taken away by staff. The family of Grant Clark were so concerned about his treatment at the Sevenoaks Neuro Rehabilitation Unit, they set up secret cameras.
Well, the 43-year-old was left permanently paralysed down the left-hand side of his body after he'd suffered a massive brain hemorrhage. Kent and Medway NHS and Social Care Partnership Trust subsequently apologised for its failings in the case. John Hunt reports.
Grant Clark's wife fitted a covert camera, concerned that he wasn't being properly cared for. It captured the disabled patient having his call bell removed and a member of staff speaking to him sternly.
staff are coming to wash you.
As a result of the footage, 3 nurses responsible for his care have been charged with misconduct by the Nursing and Midwifery Council. Mr. Clark's wife says her husband tried to let her know just how bad things were for him.
He often typed to me, because he had a typewriter in the unit. He often typed that he was in there to die. I'm going to die in here. That's what he typed every single day. I'm going to die in here.
Mr. Clark's mother says that she found the secretly recorded video so harrowing she hasn't been able to view it all.
It was absolutely devastating. And it's really hard to even think about it now. And I was so upset that I haven't actually seen all the films, because what I've seen is just too awful.
Marie Banwell was Deputy Ward Manager at the West Kent Neuro Rehabilitation Unit. Today she admitted leaving Mr. Clark in urine-soaked sheets so that she could carry out a handover, and removing Mr. Clark's call bell. Sarah Coulter, Ward Manager, admitted that she failed to ensure staff addressed concerns that Mr. Clark's family were raising, failed to ensure they followed infection control measures, and failed to ensure care plans were of an acceptable standard. A third nurse, Vanessa Kennard, did not attend today's hearing after telling the NMC she didn't care what happens. She's accused of removing Mr. Clark's call bell, incorrectly feeding him through his feed tube, and recording that she'd brushed his teeth when in fact she hadn't. The hearing, dealing with the charges the nurses deny, is expected to last 2 weeks. John Hunt, BBC South East Today in East London.
In a moment, more than a decade after Sangatte, the French open a new dedicated site for migrants in Calais.
The Liberal Democrat leader Nick Clegg has told BBC South East that he believes his party can win their first Kent seat in the upcoming general election. It comes as the party claim that a private poll shows they're within 4 points of the Conservatives in Maidstone and the Weald.
Well, the Liberal Democrats currently hold 2 seats in the South East, Lewis with a majority of just over 7,000 and Eastbourne, which has a smaller majority of around 3,500. But they're now targeting Maidstone and the Weald, where the Liberal Democrats halved the Conservative majority in 2010. I spoke to Nick Clegg while he visited Mid-Kent College today and asked him if he really thought the party could win in a traditionally Conservative seat.
You bet, absolutely.
Why do you think that?
Because in Jasper Gerrard we have first a very unusual guy. I've known him for 10 years, but you know, this is someone who's not a cardboard cutout Westminster politician. He sold his own house because he believed so firmly that he wanted to serve this area in Westminster to fund his campaign.
Given your polling nationally, you're confident that you could walk away from this election rather than losing 2 seats, gaining an extra seat?
Yes, absolutely. Look, the national opinion polls that people keep going on about doesn't tell you very much about actually how people are thinking in Maidstone. Do they want Helen Grant or do they want Jasper Gerrard? It doesn't tell you very much. A national opinion poll, which is a sort of snapshot of just a few hundred people out of 66 million, doesn't tell you how people feel about Stephen Lloyd in Eastbourne. That's why all this endless sort of cottage industry of trying to project what national opinion polls mean locally is a nonsense.
Your proposal for a payment for young people to help them move out of their parents' home, it was £1,500 outside of London and £2,000 in London. Does that £2,000 apply to the South East as well?
No,
because obviously it is more expensive here.
Sure, it is. No, look, I accept, I suppose in theory you could have a different rate for each part of the country, but we're trying to come up with a sensible approach. We're saying, look, £1,500 to pay for the deposit on a first-time flat that a youngster is renting in their 20s when they want to sort of leave the nest of mum and dad. You know, you can get a perfectly decent flat or apartment around here for that kind of deposit.
But is there a danger that with that policy you simply push up rental prices, and actually what you should be looking at is the need for more homes in this region?
Yes, of course.
And I know that you have a policy of garden cities that was brought forward, I think, in the 4th year of coalition, but that was quite late into government, and it does seem to be something that keeps getting pushed into the long grass because it's always controversial.
Well, it actually wasn't brought up on the fourth. It was brought up on the first day of government by me, but it was resisted by the Conservatives for 4 years. You're quite right. And it's an immense frustration to me that the Conservatives have blocked an idea which I think would really help the South East. Look, there's a simple choice we have in the South East. Lots of people quite rightly want to come here, they want to work here, they want to own homes, they want to raise a family here. And we have a choice in the South East. We can either have lots and lots of planning disputes, lots of angry disputes and protests and arguments about a little infill here, an encroachment on the green belt there, or we can do what we've done in the past. We did it in Welwyn Garden City, Hatfield, Milton Keynes, is build large communities in a way which is supported by the local community, in a planned way with the right amenities, and that would then relieve the pressure on places like here in Maidstone.
You've said that you're going to ring-fence spending on the NHS. We've just had Eastbourne Hospital branded inadequate by the CQC, and that's after 5 years of coalition government. How can people be confident that you're going to do the right thing? That's in a constituency which has a Liberal Democrat MP.
Look, I'm not going to pretend to you that the NHS is under anything than very considerable pressure. The number of people going to A&E has gone up, very sharply. The number of ambulances called out every day has gone up to unprecedented levels. Look, there are lots of complex...
And it needs £8 billion of funding.
Let me come to that. And there are lots of complex reasons for that. I think the main one, not the only one, the main one is quite simply that we've got an ageing population. So we've got lots of elderly folk who are spending much longer in hospital because of age-related conditions. Now, there are a number of things we need to do. We need to make sure that when they're ready to be discharged, there's a place in the community for them to be properly looked after. That isn't working properly in many parts of the country. We need to make sure that mental health is given the same priority as physical health, something I've campaigned on very, very vigorously over the last... But we also need money. And the guy who runs the NHS, Simon Stevens, has said, he's put a figure on it, he said £8 billion extra by the end of the next Parliament. We, the Liberal Democrats, have a plan, fully funded plan, involving, yes, some changes in the tax system which affect only the very wealthy, to fund that. The Conservatives have no funded plan to do so whatsoever.
You're obviously fully signed up to the EU and the EU project, which one of the fundamental principles of which is the free movement of people. People will be concerned that you won't be able to get a control on immigration, given that we have that relationship.
Look, first thing is, in terms of Europe, freedom to move, and by the way, it's a two-way street. There are as many Brits living and working elsewhere in Europe as there are non-Brits living and working here. Freedom to move is one thing. It's not the same as the freedom to claim. And that's why I've clamped down on what used to be the case under Labour, which was that you could turn up here from elsewhere in Europe and basically get benefits, no questions asked, the first day you arrive. That's a nonsense. We've got to stop that. If people want to come here and play by the rules and work, that's one thing. They can't rely on the generosity of British taxpayers through the benefit system the moment they arrive. But the other thing I would say is, look, there's good immigration, there's bad immigration, isn't there? That's why I personally insisted, and it's just started now this week, that we put proper border controls at the Kent ports in place so that your passport's checked as you leave as well as you come in. Otherwise, we don't know how many people are overstaying their visas.
Nick Clegg, thank you.
Thank you.
Our reporter Peter Whittlesey is here with us in the studio. Peter, the Liberal Democrats do seem to be deliberately targeting the incumbent MP in Maidstone, Helen Grant.
Well, that's right. These days, the Liberal Democrat leader only turns up if they think they've got a chance. They believe they've got a chance of winning this because last time they managed to more than half the majority of the Conservative Party, but they have an uphill struggle. Helen Grant is very well respected by the Conservatives. She's one of the 2010 intake to make it as a minister. Now, the Labour Party have chosen Alan Simpson to stand for them and Eddie Powell for UKIP. But the Liberal Democrats may claim that they're doing well in Maidstone, but a poll commissioned by the KM newspaper group says in Kent it's a different story. Compared with 2010, the last general election, they've dropped 12 percentage points to just 6%.
OK, thanks, Peter. And for a full list of candidates standing where you live, go to our website, bbc.co.uk/election 2015.
And you'll also be able to see the second of our leaders' interviews tomorrow. We'll be hearing from the Green Party leader, Natalie Bennett. Today, the Green Party launched their national billboard campaign for the general election in Brighton. Natalie Bennett joined the party's only MP, Caroline Lucas, in the Brighton Pavilion constituency that she's hoping to win again next month. Caroline Lucas paid tribute to her party leader, saying that she's responsible for a surge in Green membership.
Rail commuters have been complaining of Monday morning misery today after starting the working week with delays, cancellations and overcrowding once again at London Bridge. Overrunning weekend engineering works and a series of signal problems during the rush hour are thought to have caused the chaos.
Well, our reporter Juliet Parkin is in Hastings for us now. Juliet, yet more problems at London Bridge. What kind of reaction has there been from passengers?
Well, many passengers arriving back in this fog this evening will be feeling equally gloomy. Their anger was vented on social media today with comments such as utter disgrace of a service and commuters face travel chaos again. So what happened? Well, as one rail passenger group put it, complete meltdown at London Bridge this morning after overrunning engineering works finished and then were followed by 7 separate faults on the line affecting nearly all of South Eastern services through London Bridge. Delays and cancellations caused overcrowding on trains and platforms, with some passengers reporting others passing out. This was their reaction this evening.
I travel every day and normally it takes me about an hour. Today it took me 3 hours.
It was an absolute nightmare this morning. I was travelling to London with my 2 sons on the 10:21 train. There were no trains to London. There was no information about when the next train would be.
For the amount of money I pay each week, you know, it's a bit of a disgrace.
Well, Network Rail has apologised for the disruption, which is the latest in a series of problems since rebuilding work at London Bridge began. Last month, passengers were even forced to jump over barriers or crawl beneath them to avoid the crush. Well, yesterday, it was announced that South Eastern workers will be given vouchers for coping with the ongoing problems. Tonight, passengers will be asking when are they going to get compensated too.
OK, Juliet, thank you.
Right, it is 7:15. This is tonight's top story. The mother of a young man killed along with a friend in a crash in Crowborough say his family are completely devastated. Michael Owen and Kyle Careford from Tunbridge Wells died when their car overturned and crashed into a wall outside a church.
Also in tonight's programme, remembering the man they called Mr Eastbourne as a plaque's unveiled to veteran entertainer Sandy Powell.
And after a foggy start, tomorrow is shaping up to be a beautiful, sunny and warm afternoon. I'll have the details a little later in the programme.
Now today, for the first time in more than 10 years, the French government has officially opened a dedicated site in Calais for thousands of migrants who are trying to get to the UK. It's the first permanent place for migrants since the infamous Sangatte Centre was shut in 2002. More recently, hundreds of people set up semi-permanent groups of shelters that became known as the Jungle. They were bulldozed in 2009. Earlier this month, there were mass evictions of people who were sleeping rough in Calais. Well, for tonight's story update, Simon Jones has been to visit the new site and to speak to people in Calais about the latest plans to deal with the issue of migrants. Simon is in Calais for us now. Simon.
Well, it's cost around £6 million to set up this new centre and operate it for the first year. Much of that money coming from Europe. They did start serving meals here back in January, but today is the first day that people have been able to come here for showers and to get extra advice. But some are saying these extra services could lead to extra people trying to come here. Despite some opposition from Britain, this day centre in Calais is now a reality. Many migrants arriving today for a chance to charge their mobile phones or take a 4-minute shower.
Yeah, it's make better because it's 60 showers. If you take like 4 minutes in 3 hours, a lot of people, it's easy.
So a lot of people are going to have a shower,
yeah.
They get food.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to get shower and food, and every day you're going to clean.
Men will not be allowed to stay at the day centre overnight, but the authorities have permitted the migrants to pitch tents in a neighbouring field. By offering food and showers, electricity, will that encourage migrants to come to Calais to try to get to England?
They don't come here just to take a shower or just to be in a 5-star hotel. They come because they want to go to the UK, because they think that there they can build their life.
Many British drivers say what the new centre won't do is stop scenes like these.
What FTA would like to see next is perhaps the French immigration authorities taking the next step, which would be perhaps interviewing some of the people, appraising their individual situations and deciding whether or not, yes, they could have asylum in France or really no, they should be repatriated.
Some activists believe the new day centre is too far out of town. They'd like to see it transfer to this site of a former hospital with closer access to the channel.
This side of town is the Eurotunnel. Of course, it's very dangerous. You know, day after day it's very dangerous. But also it's the crossing point which is not controlled by the smugglers.
So you want to make it easier for people to get on trains?
Of course.
But shouldn't people apply for asylum here?
You know, there are many reasons why people want to go to the UK.
But the French authorities say a day centre here is vital to address concerns over welfare and security. Well, the authorities told me today they reckon there are now 1,900 migrants here in Calais who have to sleep in that field over there. The question is, will that number with a new day centre now go up?
Simon, thank you.
Now, in the 1930s, Sandy Powell became a huge radio star with his catchphrase,
"Can you hear me, mother?"
Today, a blue plaque was unveiled to the comic in his hometown of Eastbourne.
Yes, he carried on being an entertainer until his death in 1982. He was so well loved in Sussex, he was known as Mr. Eastbourne. Mark Sanders is by the pier for us now. And Mark, how did he get that Mr. Eastbourne nickname?
Well, Sandy Powell certainly loved Eastbourne, and Eastbourne loved him. For 20 years he produced and appeared on shows at the end of the pier here. He certainly did earn his nickname, Mr. Eastbourne.
Will you give me a card, please? The lost sheep on the mountains. Bay, bay.
Sandy Powell's friends and fans were in Eastbourne today to celebrate his life and gentle humour.
Can you hear me, Mother?
His catchphrase launched proceedings. A plaque was unveiled at his former home in Eastbourne. He was a big star in his day.
The people are in the street, it's packed, it's like the Beatles arriving. And there was Sandy taking a call and everything. But he was the most modest of men who loved his business. He loved Eastbourne particularly, which is why he settled here and did so many shows here. Mr. Eastbourne, they called him. What about that?
When I shout, can you hear me, Mother?
He was a big star on the radio in the 1930s, and for 20 years Sandy Powell appeared in shows on Eastbourne Pier.
One or two of the newspapers said, oh, he's completely wrong for Eastbourne. OK for Blackpool, being a northern comic, but Eastbourne, because it was so genteel. But when he arrived, the audiences took to him straight away because he had this wonderful warmth to him.
One of his favourite acts was playing an incompetent ventriloquist.
Sandy was a great comedy performer because he'd done a really bad magic act as well. He was that good. It's like Les Dawson playing the piano badly. He'd done it so well. And Sandy Powell does this with magic and ventriloquism. It's genius. He was just, comedy timing was just, brilliant.
Mr. Eastbourne is no more, but Sandy Powell's memory lives on in the town he called home. There'll be a special screening of some of Sandy Powell's material here in Eastbourne on May the 16th. It's all part of a music hall day.
Mark, thank you.
And the sun shone.
Didn't it? Now let's take a look back at the football. Bit of a mixed bag for our teams over the weekend.
Yes, the Gills' good form continued, but Crawley, Charlton and Brighton all failed to register a win. Ian Palmer has a roundup.
At Hillsborough, the home side scored just before half-time. 15 minutes before the end of the game, Charlton equalised through Berg Gudmundsson. The manager admitted they were fortunate.
In the second half, Sheffield played better than us, and they play with more tempo and more aggressive, and they have some good option to score.
Earlier, Brighton lost to the Championship leaders Bournemouth. The prize of automatic promotion, a huge incentive for the Cherries. The Seagulls have to ensure survival. In League One, Gillingham took the lead and kept it against Bradford City. The manager says the Gills should have won at a canter.
In the end there we could have had a couple more, and it was very satisfying. 3 points for us against a strong Bradford side.
Crawley were away at Scunthorpe with both sides at the bottom of the table. The hosts controlled the game. Crawley tried to fight back but came away with nothing. The Red Devils are in danger of falling out of this league. Ian Palmer, BBC South East Today.
Well, the weather's been so lovely that Rachel's gone to the park to do the forecast. Over to you, Rachel.
Well, yes, it is actually feeling a little bit chilly here at the moment, but temperatures this afternoon reached highs of around 15 degrees. Nothing like the highs that we're expecting for tomorrow. We'll get to that, though, in just a moment. Now, earlier, lots of clear skies around. We saw lots of sunshine. There was a little bit of fair weather cloud bubbling up, and temperatures along the coast are always just that little bit cooler. We had highs there of around 12 or 13 degrees. Further west, a little further inland, we saw highs of around 15 degrees. Now already that's above the seasonal average. For tomorrow, temperatures up on about 10 degrees on that. Through tonight, we're going to be seeing clearer skies and lighter winds, so problems potentially with some mist and fog that could be quite stubborn as we start the day tomorrow. So through tonight, temperatures staying really quite mild. They'll only be dropping to lows of around 5 or 6 degrees. Initially clearer skies, but we see more low cloud around and that mist and fog as we start the day tomorrow. Now we're expecting it to be quite stubborn to clear, so we are driving out early in the morning. It's worth bearing in mind that there could be some really quite stubborn fog patches around, but it burns back relatively quickly. From about 10 o'clock we start to see lots of sunshine, and temperatures widely are going to be in the top teens, low 20s. As I was saying, we could even see highs of 25 degrees. So a beautiful, warm, sunny afternoon. Again, very mild as we go from Wednesday over into Thursday. Again, temperatures only expected to drop to around 8 or 9 degrees, some places even staying in double figures. A shift though as we go into Thursday. There's a cold front around. That's going to be not bringing any rain, but temperatures dropping once again to around average, feeling much cooler for Friday, but for tomorrow, highs of 25.
Thanks very much, Rachel. Thank you.
Perfect weather for exercising in the park.
And
Great
we
stuff.
think that that's what it was.
I don't so.
They just collapsed there. That's it from us for now. Ian Palmer's back at 8 o'clock and at 10:25.
See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye.